Welcome to Specific Love. In a shop, you need a stool, whether it's to sit on, put things on, or just do whatever. In any case, I built this one in a previous project. It is made out of PVC and a little bit of cedar, and as you can tell, it's really loud and easily knocked over. So, I built this awesome stool that's not only heavy duty, you can sit on, you can use it as a step stool. So, let me show you how I did this. Now, to complete this project, I'm going to try and get everything done with just two 2x4s. So, let's do this. Now when you're making your cuts, it's a good idea to try and avoid any of the knots in your wood. You can always check through your lumber rack whenever you're getting your wood and just find the best pieces. I happen to find two that have hardly any knots in them, so that's what we're going to use. Now we're going to first cut out the legs. I need two of these at 23 inches. Now we're going to rip both of these legs down on the table saw. Just get them roughly right in half. Now once you have the legs cut, you should have a board left that's about 50 inches long. You need to set this aside, and the remaining cuts we're going to do on the other fresh board. Now that we have the legs cut out, I need to cut down some side supports. Those are going to be 14 inches long because I want this total to be about 14 by 14 square. Now once I have those cut out, I need to rip those down the center as well. Let's do that. Now that we had the legs and the side supports cut, I need to measure up 7.5 inches and 15.5 inches on both legs, and we're going to glue and screw these in place, and that way it'll hold it nice and secure. Even though this is a very small area to put a second screw, it's actually very wise, otherwise this whole side could shift up and down like so. Alright, now that this side's done, we've got to do the other side. Alright, now that we have a matching set, I want to add one additional piece across the top here, which comes to about 10 and 11/16. So I'm going to cut these out, then rip those, and then we'll install them right there. Now I end up cutting out two of these. I'm going to rip these down on a table saw, and I'm going to have a total of 4 pieces. 2 of them are going to be used for the sides, and I'll need one additional piece for later. Now there are a couple ways you can screw this together. One, you can just go straight in from the end into the end grain of this board, but that's not going to be very strong. So I'm going to use some pocket screws to give it some more strength. It's also a good idea to add a clamp whenever you're doing pocket screws so it doesn't move around at all. Now that I have the sides completed, I need to cut out the steps. And the steps are actually going to be holding these together, so let's go cut those at 11 inches. Now I got a total of 4 of these cut out, and I'm going to screw these together with 2 of them on the bottom, far out as they can go, and then 2 in the center actually touching. And that'll be kind of a step form, and I'll show you why in a little bit. This is where a clamp can definitely come in handy when you're trying to join them together. When you're installing the steps, you can always add some additional glue here. That way you don't ever have to worry about it coming apart. Now that we have the bottom steps towards the outside, the center steps are going to be right in the middle. Now I moved this to the floor to have a little bit easier access, and I'm gonna put some glue down. We're gonna center both of these right here in the center and screw them down. All right, let's test this out. All right, that's pretty sturdy. All right, remember those pieces I cut earlier and I said I would use them later? Well, here's where they come in handy, but if you look at it, I'm actually about 1/2 inch too short. I mismeasured just a little bit, and so I'm gonna have to recut this from a different board. Unfortunately, if I would have just paid attention, I could have cut it because I had about 2 inches left. If I would have cut it correctly, you'd still only use those 2 boards that you need. But in my case, I'm gonna need a third, so learn from my errors, double check your measurements. Now that I've recut that piece, I'm gonna be using pocket screws to hold it together. Now flip this onto its back to make this a little bit easier and get it nice and level. But remember, this goes on the top back piece. And I'm also using an impact on this. That's because I don't have enough room for my normal drill. It's not recommended, but sometimes you have to do what you gotta do. Now that we have the frame pretty much complete, we're gonna go back to that 50-inch board we set aside earlier. Now we're gonna take this over to the table saw, and we're gonna actually resaw it right down the middle. Now my table saw is a little old, and trying to do its max cut on a resaw could be a lot of pressure on the blade, especially as the wood tries to pinch on it. So I'm actually going to cut this at 1 inch and then raise it up to 2 inch as you see here and do a second pass. Then I'm going to flip it over and repeat the process on the other side. Now that I have the 2x4 resawn in half, I'm going to take this over to miter saw and cut these into 15.5 inch lengths. And after cutting out 3 sections, you should just have a couple small pieces left over. Now once I've laid these boards side by side, you can see like right here, there's a little gap, and that's not going to go together very well, so we're going to have to trim these down just slightly on the table saw. And just remember, as we're putting these together, we need to make sure we alternate the grains like so there's less likely to be warpage. Okay, we want the width of this to be roughly the same as the length, and remember that's roughly 15.5 inches. So a quick measurement, we're gonna have to do away with one of these boards, it's too wide. And we're still gonna have to trim off just a little bit off of one of these. We'll probably make that the center board so you don't really notice it. All right, now that I have that cut out, this should be about the right width, 15.5. All right, let's glue this up. Now that I have everything glued up, before I add the clamps, I need to add some weight just to make sure everything's gonna stay nice and flat. And that should do it. Now that this is dry, we're gonna go over this whole thing with an orbital sander to remove some of this glue squeeze out, maybe some of this writing, and maybe even some of the saw marks on here. The bottom does not nearly have to be perfect. The top, you can do it as much as you want. Now I'm gonna use a router to go over all the edges with a roundover bit. Now once we have the top as smooth as we like, we're gonna place it face down and take the frame and turn it upside down onto it and center it up. Now just make sure that the grain of the wood is going side to side to have the most strength. Then on the back side, we're gonna be installing a couple 2-inch hinges so that the top can flip up. Now, depending on what you're gonna do with your stool, it's a good idea to add some kind of protective finish to help it last a little bit longer. All right, and for the moment of truth, if you need a stool to sit on, we have a nice, sturdy stool, and if by chance you need a step stool, there we go. Real nice and sturdy. Great for a shop project, great to have in your garage or wherever you want around the house. To remember, I only use 2 2x4s for this entire thing. So, get out in your shop and have fun building. At 11 inches. Let's try it again. All right. And hit the ceiling. Sides cut in place.